Welcome everybody. Happy New Year. Good to have you here on this webinar in the new year. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Today I'm happy to have Waldo as our guest in our 60th, the 60th Areopa webinar. So Waldo, a special one. Thanks for being our guest. And yes, always interested in what you're going to show. So it's also new for me. I want to learn about the tools you're using. So before I'm going to hand over to you, our normal housekeeping rules and all the other things that following. For those that might be new here, your microphone is muted. You cannot unmute it, but be welcome to interact, to post your questions using the question window. And I, as the moderator, Luc van Vugt, I will pick up the questions, and we agreed that if it makes sense at that point in time, I will step in and pose a question to Waldo. So please don't hold back, come up with your questions. If you would like to replay it, you can find it on our YouTube channel. Tell it to other people so they can also make use of it and learn from it. So it will be there till the end of time, you could say. If you want to be in the know, register yourself, subscribe to our newsletter. For the time being, we have quite a number of webinars still ahead. As you can see, up till the end of March, there is one whole in between the 20th of February and the 20th of March. But I'm working on a webinar by Kristen Hosman, US MVP. Will be a functional oriented one, more or less the first time on the Areopa webinar series. But I hope it will also be opening up a potential new kind of series of webinars on the more functional side. Surely for me, a lot to learn after this many years working in the channel. There's still a lot of functionality that I'm totally nitwit on. Anybody else, of course, be welcome. If you have a topic yourself, you want to be a speaker, or there is a topic you would like to be discussed, to inform me on that one, to send me a mail and ask me about it. So be welcome. And yes, Eric, we're almost there. And now I'm saying Eric. Waldo, yes, sorry. Yes, you're right. I didn't say that. I will cut it out. Thanks to our sponsor, this is possible through Fornaf, giving us the availability of GoToWebinar. Waldo, it's going to be yours. So I'm going to make you presenter, and you should be able to share your screen. You're right. Yeah, I'm seeing your screen. I'm hearing you loud and clear. So,
and I hope you see my PowerPoint, right? Because I have
yes.
3 screens and I have no idea what's showing.
I think this is the right one. It shows Waldo okay. And the less familiar, etc. No, that's okay.
Okay, that's cool.
Have fun.
So yeah, look, thank you for having me again on the Areopa webinar. It's an honor always to be here. The first of the year. So I obviously for everyone a happy new year, all the health and all the best wishes that I can wish you. What I was thinking when you asked for a topic is to bring this basically back to from under the dust, let's say, because I have been talking about it, but not that much. Basically, just on one occasion, basically just used the tool that I will be using, basically talking about today. Although I must say I have been using it myself ever since. And I thought that it might be interesting to just show it again and also go a lot deeper into how to build your own tooling and testing for it. So what am I talking about? Well, before I will go into that, let's maybe just talk about tooling. The topic of the day is the less familiar performance tool or tooling. What are the familiar performance tooling, let's say? Well, I guess on this slide, we all know that already. The page inspector, yes, that's also a performance tool. Debugger, we can get some SQL information in there. The Business Center Performance Toolkit, quite interesting. I have not seen many people using it yet. I need to be honest, I'm not using that much of the performance tooling or performance tool myself, the Business Central Performance Tool myself. Then again, we have the in-client and the in-client profiler and the AL profiler. We will touch that today, but obviously these are my favorite. Personally, if I look into problems or ad hoc problems, I always use these profiling tools, and usually I get to the very specific problem at that point. And last but not least, we do have the event log as well, which can give us some long-running queries information as well, obviously on-prem. The somewhat less familiar, not completely less familiar, the somewhat less familiar performance tooling is things that we can get, let's say, at the back end, at SQL Server. Now we have SQL Management Studio, obviously, and the SQL Profiler. We have dynamic management views in SQL Server. We have the query store. Again, tools I will not talk about today either. Even less familiar performance tools, that's what I will be talking about. The Waldo's BCPerTool is actually something that originated from something that I needed for a session, but well, turned into a tool that I have been using actually quite a lot to basically figure out some scenarios for myself, like what would be the best choice of, let's say, a coding sample or anything like that. And that is also why I wanted to show that today. Now you see two other tools here as well, the Flame Graph and Pyroscope. Also two that I will be showing today. I'm not going to go too much into that yet. Let's keep a little bit of tension, let's say. So these will be the three that I will be talking about. First, the waldo.BCPerftool. Once that I got the comment on a session like, how much of an ego can you have when you always put your own name in front of your own tools? Well, yeah, sorry, I do that. But in any case, the waldo.BCPerftool is not the Business Central Performance Toolkit, not at all. We will touch that topic a little bit, but this is, let's say, a completely new tool, basically just no dependencies whatsoever. The scope is cloud, so you can already guess it is an app, right? An app in Business Central. Which has a scope cloud. So it should work, it does work in the cloud as well as a PTE in Business Central. I've been thinking about just building this as an app source app. I'm not there yet. I'm not sure that would be interesting at all, to be honest. Whatever, if you have comments on that, I'm always happy to know. What is it for? Well, to easily and fast and easily build performance tests, right? Any kind of scenario that you're thinking of, it should be easy to run. So here, just an example of a screenshot that I will show in length in a minute. Just a way that you have suites and let's say performance cases that you can easily run and just look at statistics. The idea, obviously, when you're running, when you look into performance tuning, that you can look into statistics, right? And you can compare different kinds of scenarios. So it's not using test runners. That's not that important. The thing is that I didn't want to depend on any kind of whatever it does in the background to roll back or catch some kind of transaction. I really wanted to test the actual performance that is being, let's say, executed on certain services, on whatever, and catch that performance impact. Not something that is working extra or working in another layer or anything like that. So that's why I actually intentionally didn't use any kind of testability. Then it does have, you see here on the right on the screenshot, it does have like in the settings for select latest version. As you know, select latest version is a statement within AL to make sure to get the latest state of the record, let's say, to not use caching, let's say. Interesting because, well, sometimes your scenarios might use caching. So now you can basically test when you're using or when you're not using caching and what impact that would have. Some other tools we will handle in length as well. The performance profiling part, as you know, you have the in-client performance profiler. Now, this in-client performance profiler is actually just a page that runs code units in the background. Well, why not just running that same kind of business logic, but from another tool? So I'm using that business logic within the perf tool and doing some stuff with that. But we will cover that. Well, it has a batch run to get averages. Just imagine the first time you run a certain piece of business logic, it might take longer than the second run. Usually, it's what we call, or what I call, the Monday morning syndrome. Everything runs slower on a Monday morning simply because it hasn't run yet. Things, libraries that needs to be loaded in memory and all that crap. Obviously, when you're looking into performance, that's something you don't want to catch, let's say. So in a way, if you are able to run it in a batch, you can get averages of a certain scenario and how long that would take and all that. Graphs, we have some graphs. I'm not going to go too much into that just yet. But yeah, the tool provides a few abilities to show and compare results, and that's basically it with the help of graphs. Run and analyze an object. Yeah, obviously, if I'm not, well, yeah, sorry. Run and analyze an object. So you can run scenarios, obviously, and scenarios usually is a piece of business logic, like posting of an invoice. But on the other hand, like if a report is slow or if running a page is slow, well, you should be able to look into that as well. So I build, and we will go into that again, a way to, what I think, run each object and look into the performance impact of each object. So would it be a query or a page or a table or anything like that? You can see the performance impact. That it's very simple, but also quite useful. And then, well, I built some kind of interface, let's say, to be able to easily, and I'm actually putting up some air quotes now, easily. I'm not sure it's easy enough, but let's say if you get used to it, it's easy to easily build multiple scenarios within one code unit, easily make them available, and easily run them and get statistics from them. What that means, that's the reason basically why we have this session, that I explained that to you. So I obviously, if you need to build code units, I build snippets as well. Sorry, AJ, if you're listening to this. Well, there is a snippet that you won't use either. In any case, that's an inside joke. Sorry about that. Joking on webinars is really strange. In any case, so this is not the Business Central Performance Toolkit at all. It has different scopes, right? The Business Central Performance Toolkit that we get from Microsoft, it orchestrates user scenarios, not just user scenarios, basically business cases. Like I've got 5 order entries, I've got 3 bookkeepers, and if they're all working together, what impact does that have on performance? And what impact does it have now? And or when I would install another app, this app, do I lose performance and this kind of thing? So it gathers, compares results in a certain business case. That's not what this is for. What I'm aiming at is simply to be able to gather statistics on coding samples, on coding solutions, on like a comparison between, let's say, find set and find minus, or a comparison between using .NET Interop. No, that's a bad example. Or let's say a text builder and just a normal text variable, and these kind of things. Simple, or how to structure my subscribers and how events act like. So the very deep down coding samples instead of the very big business cases and what that could be like. Would I be able to extend the Business Central Performance Toolkit? I don't know. I actually really didn't look into that, to be honest. Might have been interesting. I don't know. In any case, time for a demo. And that's basically what the rest of the session is going to be, I guess. So what I have here is a set of apps. So this is a multi-root workspace with a lot of apps, and you see all BCPerFtool. Basically, the framework, the app that I was talking about is this one. So just the BCPerFtool, and the rest depends on the one and implements some demo scenarios. So if you see here, a simple demo app, some other demos, some more demos with extensions, maybe you can already guess these are extending some tables to be able to measure performance on table extensions. Yeah. Now, what I will be touching today is obviously the BCPerFtool, right? And the simple demo app, just to show you how this is all about. If you would like to really look into performance scenarios, this is not a topic of today. I'm not going to tell you what is faster, find minus or find set, let's say. But do know there is this other one that has a lot of scenarios already coded. I handled a lot of, not all, but a lot of these scenarios already on BCTechDays. If you watch that session, basically that's where I will be using the tool to show you performance scenarios. Today, I will be actually talking about how to use the tool and build your own performance scenarios. That's basically it. And I will be doing that with the simple demo app. Before I will do that, I will just show the tool. Here should be somewhere. Yeah. So this is an already installed running tool, and I just would like to show you, how it's basically structured. What do we see now? Well, we see now suites, basically a way to group multiple scenarios in one suite or multiple suites. So you see, I've got multiple suites. I have an ability to group the suites. It's not that hocus pocus, basically. So these group basically is there just to be able to filter, like, okay, I'm now talking about data types. So these are the two suites that I have to talk about data types. Today will be talking about the simple demo app. So this is basically my only demo on the simple demo app. Well, not just when I demo the tool, I will be demoing some other things as well. Now, if we drill into a suite, let's just say, let's take this suite. Now I'm basically drilled down into some kind of topic, let's say one suite, one topic that I would like to analyze performance into. In this case, for instance, I would like to compare like calc fields in a loop, or not in a loop, but auto calc fields outside the loop. Obviously, we all know that auto calc fields is much faster than always doing a calc field in a loop, but maybe we would like to gather some statistics on that. Obviously, I need to write code. How we write that code, we can see in a few minutes. But yeah, but let's first use the tool and how it looks like first. So this is just a suite. This is just a code that I already prepared. And you can already see some stuff that I might be able to do here. For instance, I can run this code. And if I would click this, I am actually running that sample code, which is basically just a loop of 25,000 calc fields or something like that. And now you see here on the right that I get some statistics on that. So as such, I did 200 reads. I did 102 SQL statements that I executed in 7 seconds. And this is basically just what I did. Yeah. If I do that again, I get basically a second run, obviously. And all these runs are logged in the background in the log table. Yeah. And I'm getting, sorry, I need to log out. There we go. Okay. So all these logs are obviously in the background, or not really in the background, they are just part of the app. And obviously they will be used to compare results, right? So I did now 2 runs of the calc fields in loop, and you see I get very similar results, obviously, because they are very similar things that I'm doing. Auto calc fields, we know this is faster. If I would run this one, then you see it's the first run. It only took 1 second. The one here below, I get to see all the runs, and this is already a first glimpse on how I would be able to compare results. So the auto calc fields is much faster than the calc fields in loop, for instance, in this case. Now there are other ways to compare, and if you scroll down, you'll see basically the same 2 scenarios. Is now I refresh, you will see that I get some graphs. Now, obviously, these are just 2 runs, 2 scenarios. When you have multiple scenarios, this makes maybe more sense. But here you can really nicely compare, like, yeah, calc fields in loop is a lot slower. It takes a lot more duration, let's say, than the auto calc fields. So any kind of scenario that I would build, I get these comparison kind of graphics out of the box. So that's nice. Now, this batch loop, it might be interesting as well, because I'm not going to do that because it takes 7 seconds per run, this one at least. But as you see here, there's a batch count as well. So if I would run a batch, it is going to run all of these sequentially and basically just run them all after each other. The idea is that I will get averages. Again, when the first run might be slower. Now I have been running this today already, so that's why the 2 times 7 seconds was pretty much the same. But the first time might be slower, and yeah, it's always better to get some kind of average anyway. So what I would be able to do, I run a batch, but also you see here, disable from batch. I would be able to just not run the slow one, but run the auto calc fields, which is the fast one, in batch, and you see now that it is just running 10 times. Because that was stated. And the idea is obviously that I will get an average from the 10 runs down here. So this is the average of the auto calc fields. And here you see basically all these runs that it has been doing, all about 1 second. And on the right, you also see all the averages here. Also a place where you would be able to compare the 2 results. Another setting, the select latest version. As you see, it's set up. So basically, when it's set to true, it's not going to take caching. It will always get the SQL records again from the SQL database. If I want to use caching, I can basically disable select latest version. And if I would, let me clear the log a minute. If I would run it now, first time might run again 7 seconds. Second time, not at all. It's not even going to read on SQL Server. So this is basically the NST cache kicking in. I'm now not even going to SQL to get all these calc fields anymore. That's not important. It is important to know that the select latest version there, because it might be interesting to always have this on or off, depend a little bit on the scenario that you're in. Also not unimportant is the fact that you can tag your runs here. So if I, for instance, clear here, and let's say select latest version is on, I will tag this one. If I run this one, you will get the 7 seconds, most probably. And if I put now tag with no select latest version, I will switch it off, run it again. Okay, bad example. Yeah, well, caching is very unreliable, so it's also something that it's very nice to see. If I run it now again, you will see that it's 0. You see, with no select latest version, you get these kind of scenarios. With select latest version, you will get a very stable 7 seconds. One might discuss that's stable 7 seconds doesn't exist, but anyway, you get these tagging here, and obviously now you can open this in Excel, draw your own kind of conclusions, especially when you have a lot of runs like that. Tagging your different settings just makes it possible to distinguish different runs from that entire log table as well. Okay. What else is possible? Well, let's maybe open another script. Let's maybe open this one, flame graph, whatever that is. I've got this post-sales invoice scenario here. In the background, there was just a code unit that is creating an order, posting that order. That's it. It's not really hosting. And as you see here, I've got another check mark, which says the run performance analyzer. And what that does, let me just see that I prepared. I don't think I prepared this the right way. Let me just check. I will explain what I'm doing in a minute. Well, after this, we're running this first. There we go. I will explain what I just did, but later in the session. So I'm going to check one more thing because, yeah, you know, this is why when you, yeah, this should not be okay, like that. Now we're good. So let's run the posting sale. Again, I will explain what I just did. So the idea is that you basically just, again, analyze the performance of, now in this case, of posting a sale invoice. Just imagine that takes a long time. Well, it takes 700 milliseconds. It's not long. If you really would like to know what is happening in the background, what is happening in these 700 milliseconds, what you would do is obviously you would go to, what is it, help and support, and then go to analyze performance, and then start in-client performance profile. But that's a lot of hassle. So the idea is, why not just build it in here? So you see here now, by checking this check mark, run performance analyzer, this log entry has a profile, and I'm able to download that profile. So let's download it, open it, and now you see here the profile that I have been running. And that's not all, because, I mean, this is one thing, but just imagine that you have two ways or two runs, that one was fast and one is slow, two scenarios. So I can make it slow here, and basically what it does is just setting a boolean in the background to activate some kind of event subscriber, which makes this slow. And you will see that I would run this now. It's taking a little bit longer. This is intentional. I just want to show you the tooling. But this takes now 3 seconds instead of 700 milliseconds. So yeah, basically these are just sleeps on certain times within the posting routine. But this should also show at some point in some planes, right? So what I would be able to do here, I would be able to just download again a profile and try to analyze it. And probably I will find it. I mean, I've got 3 seconds here, and if I will drill down to whatever the problem is at some point, oh wow, this is a lot of code. And yeah, you see, I get lost. Maybe there is a better way. Yeah, well, there is a better way. There's a better way of showing this. If I would show this as a flame graph, or maybe download the flame graph, I will actually see a visual representation of my code coverage tool. So this is basically the same profile, just a very different representation of it. This is a timeline from left to right, right? So apparently I did some posting routine here in this demo code unit, whatever, and that's the one that took long, right? And then if you look at the call stack, it has been spending this time on this method, this time on this method, and this time on this method, while this was the call stack to that method. You can already guess these are the 3 sleeps that I built in just with an event subscriber to make that slow. Now this is a nice representation, and once you get the hang of it, it really reads nice. I mean, what this means, what this says to me, like this call stack is completely not the problem. This is a problem because this takes long, and you literally can see that it takes long, and this is a problem, and this is a problem, right? And that's what I would need to look at. But the problem also is, like, just imagine that this fast one, the 718 milliseconds, if I download the flame graph from that one and open that one, comparing these two might also be interesting. And that's obviously this way that is not easy. Now, what I have been doing in the meantime, while I was basically just running, right? So when I basically press this, I also uploaded all these profiles to what we call Pyroscope. Now, Pyroscope, you see here, is actually a tool, a server, service, and I just set that up with that Docker container. So this one, so that is just a Pyroscope server. Yeah, that basically you can call and send requests to, or let's say you can send profiles to. And that's what I did in the background. I just sent, whenever I pressed run, I sent the profile that I captured from the inclined profiler. I sent that to this server, and that is actually going to catch that. If I go back to my server, you see here the two profiles that I've been sending. Yeah. Do that. So this was the fast one. This was the slow one. You see that here. And you have difference views here. So I would be able to compare this profile with this profile, and you see now the actual comparison. All these peaks don't really matter. It's this one, and this one that really was a change. And you see that very visual by using this tool. Yeah. We are not going to analyze this, but we actually already did that. And you see here the actual code unit and method where I would have to look into some beautiful code from Waldo, apparently, and this one also, and this one also. So 3 times the same method on 3 different places. So yeah, I think that is actually a very nice way to look at performance, and basically to be able to compare performance results. Now, how I did that, we will cover later in the session. Just now demoing the tool first. Well, actually, that's the next topic. How did I do that? Well, let's dive a little bit into code on how all these statistics are actually being gathered. So first, yeah, my tool, obviously, here it is. Let me first drill into the run of an object. So whenever I press run, this is actually what I'm going to execute. What I mean with that. So whenever I press here run on a sweet line, let's say, I obviously would like to capture the complete run of the code, but also much more. And I would like to attach the results to this line and get all the statistics and all that. So there is a lot going on when I press run. Let's say a run is not just well, running an object, right? What I actually wanted to get is, first of all, this run is going to check if this latest version needs to be called. So there's a very simple if that check mark is checked, then call select latest version, right? And this is also where I will call the or start the analyzer. Now, how I will do that, we will see in a minute. But it's obviously, let's set up the test first and then run an object. Now, running of this object, I can run multiple objects, as I said. In the only examples that we have seen, Okay, my keyboard is gone. Getting back. So the only examples that we have seen is a code unit, right? Running a code unit, but I would be able to run like a page as well. And I've got a very simple example for that. Well, I can create a very simple example for that. Like I'm going to run a page. We'll put this in the simple group so I can find it. And you can simply say, okay, run page, let's say vendors, what is it, 23? I hope. No, that is not 23. Oh my God, so bad. Let's see, vendors 27, course 27. And then I would basically just run this page, right? And capture that information. Is it actually doing something now? I have problems with my PC, it seems. It's not very good. Ah, there it is. Okay, and it captured that information. So I would be able to do that for any kind of object type. Now, how I do that for any kind of object type, you see, I've got this code unit that I can show you. This is actually where I figure out, like, how do you want to run that object, right? We will skip this code unit for a minute. But a page, I will just run model of a page, which comes with its perks, but I run model. For a query, I decided to save as XML. That kind of like gave me some, well, simulation of how to run a query. For a report, I'm just running a report without the request form or request page. And for a table, I will basically just loop the first 50,000 records. And else, yeah, well, else I have a problem. And for a code unit, that's special. For a code unit, I've got two kinds of code units, and obviously code units is used most of the time. Well, what I noticed is like just running a code unit and using the on-run trigger would turn into a crap load of code units that I would have to use. And that is not possible. So for a code unit, I decided to invent something else to, let's say, create what I call PerFtool code units. But I will go into that in a second. So this is the running of an object, and these are the objects that we are able to run. Now, to capture the reads and the SQL writes, there is actually quite a neat way to do that. There is this session information dot SQL statements executed, which is just a number, an ever increasing number that is bound to your session. And this is basically an ever increasing number on how many rows that you have read. Yeah. So basically what I'm doing is saving that in the start, what is my current number for my session, and then in the stop code unit, which is another one, I will basically do the start or basically get start, the current minus what I already read, and the same for the SQL statements minus what I already read. So getting these kind of information is actually very simple. Now for the performance analyzer, it's actually where we have, and that's where I opened the system up here. In the system app, we have a performance profiler ability. It's basically the same library that the in-client performance profile is using, we can use as well. We have the sampling performance profiler code unit, which is public from the system app, where we can simply start, stop, see if a recording is in progress, and get the data. So that's pretty much what I'm doing as well. I will start, stop whenever you press start, and when a complete run is finished. When the complete run is finished, I will stop the performance profile and get the data and save that in my log file. And that's pretty much what I'm doing here. I'm getting the data here and saving that to my log. Yeah. Now for the flame graph that you have seen, there's a little bit more to it, because this data that I'm getting back here, this is this AL CPU performance profile kind of file. I don't know if you ever have looked into that kind of file. It's actually, yeah. Can I show that? Let me check. Where are my downloads here? Okay. It's actually just a JSON file. That is a CPU profile. This is what the profile actually looks like. If you open the same profile in VS Code, now it's bound to this one. Anyway, if you would open it with VS Code, you get a really nice visual overview, but actually it's just a JSON. Now, this JSON file, to actually get the flame graph, it needs to be converted. And this is where Torben, which is also part of the attendee list, comes into play. So let me just show you what I'm actually doing to convert it. Project, sorry about that. So actually that was just a service, and sorry Torben, I'm actually now publicly showing that service, so you might have to change that. Anyway, everything will be made public, by the way, at some point. We will go into that in a minute. But I'm just a service where I will send my AL CPU profile file to, the JSON file, and I will get back an SVG based on a library that actually already existed out there. I have the details on the slide. And that is actually what I will be getting back. What I will be getting back is pretty much the SVG file that I just showed you. So that just an SVG file with the flame graph. Yeah. Although I can also upload that to Pyroscope, the server, remember. And let me try to find that again. I'm a little bit lost in screens. So upload to Pyroscope is pretty much the same. Remember this Pyroscope Docker container, which accepts a service, a certain URL, basically a big URL where I will be sending, let's say, a converted file. Again, I will be using Torben for that, which converts the file, this time not in an SVG file, but this time in a folded, what we call a folded file, is pretty much just an, let's say, an what is it, a text file, a comma separated file, that this URL understands. So I just have that big URL, I call it in post method, and that's where I basically just upload that big file, that folded, converted profile to that server for that time, which, yeah, you can, it's basically just like an event viewer, or how do you compare it, like a log. So the more you always have a certain performance log or a certain call stack that you can send at a certain time. This was executed at that point, and that's also when you open the Pyroscope. Open Pyroscope again. That this profile was at a certain point in time. This is where I sent that one. This is where I sent the next one. So we basically have like a profile of profiles, if I can call it like that. Okay, so that's a little bit in the background. So now you know how to gather all these performance statistics if you would like to create your own tooling. As such, maybe I can show you now. I already showed you on how to create this simple test and how to create just a run page test kind of thing. You obviously can run other tests, basically just run a code unit. I would be able to, like, say, let's run code unit 80, and you would already know that this basically just doesn't do anything. I mean, there is no on-run trigger, or there is no parameters or anything to do when I would just run the sales post code unit, right? And this, convinced me, like, this is not going to work. For running a code unit, I need to build a code unit. I need to be able, like, to say, like in this case that I used earlier, like, I would like to run a code unit maybe, but in this code unit, I would like to run a certain procedure. I'm not going to build a code unit for each kind of procedure that I want to build. That doesn't make any sense, and that is not readable either. So I needed to have some kind of system, some kind of, let's say, pattern that I can use to build multiple scenarios and fast. So how that works, and there are loads of examples. I'm going to close this because I'm always the wrong one. So how that works, let me build my own code unit, maybe, or maybe just use this one first. So this is an example that I already built. And I've got two scenarios here, a simple test and another simple test. Yeah, what it does doesn't really matter. The idea is I need to be able to press run for this function and press run for this function. And I do have that. If you see here, I've got my simple code unit, I've got simple test and another simple test. Now, the way, I mean, I cannot just run a code unit and a certain procedure in a code unit. That's not possible. So that's why I came up with a certain pattern. First of all, this one is important. And by the way, this is a code that implements an interface. This interface is actually making you create these two functions, run function and the get procedures function. The get procedure function always basically just returns a list of procedures. And the run function basically is just going to attach the number of the one in the list and the one function that needs to be executed. That is quite simple. It is some manual work, sure. If I have yet another test, then I need to like copy this down, call it yet another test, simple test, do something different, and then basically just copy this down, call my function yet another test. This is the third one that I will do, and copy this down and call this yet another test. So I have a list of 3, let's say. I have here bound my, let's say, name of my function to the actual function that is going to be executed here. And that's the only thing that I would need to do to have another scenario. Yeah. And I can tell you, if you've done a few hundreds of these, and like I did, it is actually quite simple to do. First one might not be simple, I admit. Then we have also this subscriber here. It's just for me to automatically install all my procedures. Yeah. Just a subscriber on get suite data. Basically, I will on install, I will run this trigger. So on install, you have the ability to install all the suites. So basically what I'm doing, I might be able to create a new group here. I'm just using the group that already existed. I might be creating a new suite here. I'm just added one in an existing suite, a simple code unit suite. And I might be just create lines here. And that's basically what I'm doing here. I will be creating lines based on this enum. All the ones from this enum, you can already guess this is the one that implements the interface. So it will do a get procedures and build all the ones from here. If I would publish this now, and I would refresh my suites, if I now would go to my simple code unit here, I will have yet another simple test. Yeah, that's how simple it is. I can understand that it's not that simple, especially not to start with. Like if you have like this completely new test case, how do you start? Well, do know there is a snippet that you can use. Let's say this is like a find set something. That is going to be my demo case, whatever that I would like to see. I can now find set something here, and it already builds my interface here, my implementation for the first procedure that I just gave a name here. Now I can give it some kind of group. I can just simple 2, for instance, a new group with a new suite, obviously, because it's a new group. Let's say find set stuff, something with find set, and that's it. Yeah. Now I'm implementing an interface. This is a new code unit that implements this interface. That usually means that I also need a new value in an enum as well. That's also already part of this one here. So I just put that in the same snippet. I can just cut and paste that in my enum extension to be able to implement, in this case now, the new code unit for this one. You see there is well, a prefix here that I needed to add, and that's it. That's basically all to be able to implement your first code unit. Now obviously I need to implement the actual performance case that I would like to find, whatever that is. And if I would run this one, again, refresh my suites. In this case, I don't have it in this group. I should have another group, the new group here. And you see there is the find set something. And I would be able to just call this, I get all my statistics here and everything, basically what I hope that works, that's work. I mean, I don't have to do anything for my statistics. The only thing that I need to do is focus on the actual performance case that I need to run. The run performance analyzer is there, the flame graph is there, the Pyroscope is there, select latest version is there, gathering statistics on SQL Server is there. Basically, all that tooling is there already. The only thing that I would need to do is just focus on the actual performance case that I would like to focus to. Okay, then we'll end with some slides. So this flame graph, as I said, I didn't make any of that. I'm basically just using a service that Torben led, part of our beautiful community, and he has a blog as well, and please follow his blog. He promised that he was going to let's say, describe much more of what this flame graph can do and how it works. But at this point, he does have, let's say, an open source service that we can all, let's say, base our flame graphs off. And that's all I did. All I do is basically just call his service. He will make it into an SVG file that I showed, or a folded file that I can upload to Pyroscope. Yeah. Now his work is based on somebody else's work again, from Brandon Gregg, who basically just created a way to visualize, let's say, a profile like that. Now for the Pyroscope is just a piece of software that captures, let's say, these profiles that we can basically send the profiles to. Yeah, that's what you have seen as well. If you want to know more, do write down his blog and keep an eye on it. Okay, my PerfTool, that's just on GitHub, and that's already there. It got a massive update today by working on this session, yeah, you can just use it. I mean, it's basically just there, open source and whatever. And if you have ideas, I already have a few ideas to add, by the way. Basically, you noted them down here. Next thing that I will be working on, which I think might be interesting, is to be able to send weight stats to telemetry. There's already telemetry in there, by the way. I'm sending stats to telemetry, the same as in the log, but I have some visualization of the weight stats as well, since we can get that. Questions, Luc?
Oh, no questions so far. Well, no, one's getting in here from Peter Jurgensen. Is there any way to do a select latest version for the object cache and not the data cache? Between brackets, I'm going to test any gain of using single instance code units for big stateless code units.
No, there's, as far as I know, no way to distinguish between the two, I'm afraid. Even more, I don't think even a selected version would clear the object cache. Not sure.
Clear?
Well,
Yes.
clear, I'm not sure.
No, the answer is clear.
Yeah.
That was the only question, Waldo. I think people have been listening very clearly and very interested. At least I did. And seeing not moving a lot of people out of the session also gives food to the fact that you did a great session.
Or they fell asleep.
Yeah, I don't think so. I know you would say that, but I don't think so. Arthur says, awesome tool. Thank you for sharing this with the community. Yes, fully agree with that. So nicely in time, Waldo. I think this is food for thought for many of us. Yes, Andrea says not sleeping. Andre and says thanks a lot. Alan Butterfield, sorry. Do you have any insight into when to split NAV service tier to different NAV servers? Is that something that you
multiple NAV service tiers? Insight. I don't know what you mean with insight. I can share what we do. Since 64-bit service tiers, we are not splitting for clients anymore. Back when it was still 32-bit, we split it per, like say, 20, 25 clients. We had a server instance. But we noticed that, I mean, this cache synchronization is an absolute problem, especially when you split, let's say, client service tiers. So what we do now, we set up a server instance for clients, and if we have 300-400 clients, we don't care. They are all on one server instance, and that works. Obviously, you need to scale the server, right? That it can handle that amount of memory and CPU power. But we do split like web servers or web server instances for APIs. So we don't want API calls to be on client instances. We don't want job queues to be on client instances. So these are typical separate server instances. But for clients, we don't split anymore.
What's the reason why what's the reason that you do the split for APIs and background processes? Because of fallback or whatever goes wrong, then everything goes wrong, or is it because of the
different
load?
purposes? For job queues, it's to be able to, let's say, to restart a job queue or job queue instance without restarting client instances. Yeah. And obviously, when you have a big job running, it should not influence client performance and vice versa. Same for web servers or API instances. You don't want like the wrong API call, let's say, to influence your client performance. Yeah. Or something wrong with the client being influencing your, let's say, scanning performance or any kind of API. So that's why we split them. Basically because they should not influence each other's performance. You could say the same for each client, but then again, you cannot set up a client instance for each client.
Alan adds to, let's say, you answering his question, agreed. And next to that, separate by location and department to improve cache hit ratio. That's what he mentions.
Yeah. I don't really remember the issues that we had with the cache synchronization, but there were quite some issues, to be honest. Really weird. Sorry, I don't remember the actual issue that we had, where we stopped basically splitting for clients. I can understand when you have really a location and you have latency problems because of locations that you basically set up. But then again, you might have latency problems between the NST and the SQL Server as well. I don't know. It would be a nice discussion, to be honest.
Well, might be a topic, Alan. You're welcome.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, we're getting to the hour, almost there. I think you answered all the questions also. Thank you very much, Waldo. And thanks everybody for being here. Hope to see you again in 2 weeks' time, and enjoy the rest of the day. See you later.
Thank you.